of how much detail, how far do you drill down. You know, you try not to get into the weeds too much, but at the same time, you want to feel confident that you're doing your job. You know, I understand, you know, Councillor Abel's request for this kind of detailed information, but at the same time, you know, I'm cautious because, I mean, as Mayor Daw inserted, I mean, you can do cost accounting on everything we do. I mean, especially in Mr. Downey's department, you know, you can go line by line in all of the different programs and activities that the town provides and do the same sort of breakdown to figure out what the metric is. You could look at the rock climbing wall, you could look at Aquafit, you could look at Club Aurora, you could look at every single thing that's in that program and services guide and ask the same questions and try and get the same details and deal with those things. And I'm sure with many other departments you could do it. We could do it with our own meetings. You could look around the table and say tonight we probably have spent $1,500 in salaries, you know, for the senior team that's around the table here as well as whatever else. But again, you know, and so, you know, what I liked what we did last term is we looked at service levels and we had a little higher conversation around what's core or mandatory and what's discretionary. A lot of the services we provide in Mr. Downey's department is discretionary. If the conversations around should we be doing special events or should we be contracting it out, you know, I think I welcome that conversation around the table, but I'm a little concerned about the amount of time we'll continue to spend diving deeper and deeper into every line item.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just only going to say, I wasn't quite certain whether Councillor Abel wanted all of the external or the inter-department hours and those resulting fees for tomorrow or for next year. But if it's for next year, I think it is worthwhile to explore, you know, during FAC for next year. I know just really quickly from my previous role when we were manufacturing mutual funds, you know, when I managed a mutual fund product to market, you know, I didn't budget internal legal fees, internal compliance, internal marketing. The only thing that we were charged internally was for technology. For some reason, the bank considers them as a value add. They were not a cost center, and so we were billed by them. And so maybe going forward, maybe at FAC, I don't think it's practical to go through communications time. It takes more time kind of at the end of the day, everyone allocating how many hours they dispensed at this project or that project. But I think it might be fair for the special event staff to maybe allocate so we know exactly how much of their time one event is taking, but it might not be practical for the other calculations. But I think that's something that we could discuss at FAC.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Maracas, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Abel mentioned something, and it just kind of stuck in my head that this is a good way for us to take this information and look at other events that are possibly third party and see the value in it. And so I'm just wondering through you, Mr. Mayor, maybe to Mr. Downey, do we get an in-depth analysis report from any third-party events in the same structure? That way we could compare them?
Mr. Downey?
See, Mr. Mayor, no, we don't. We get some approximations with regards to some of the costs, but no, we don't get any detailed accounting.
So I guess my comment would be that if we're going to be able to compare them, then maybe if we are, you know, whether we're giving a grant or whether we're putting money into any event, maybe we should get that in-depth analysis so that way we can compare them, you know, so we can see apples to apples. Because if we're only getting half the story on one side and we're getting the full story on the other, well, we can't really compare them and see the value from one to the other. And so, you know, I guess my suggestion would be is that in any event that happens, if we're going to have this detailed, then we should have it for all events that happen within the town, so we can see the value that's you know, put forward for our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Maracas. That's everyone. Everyone's spoken twice except me, who hasn't spoken once. You've gone. You have.
Cutting me off. I talked once, Mr. Mayor.
Once. Everybody's once.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councillor Maracas.
We had the main motion. We did amendments and we went back to the main motion. That's what I had.
We're on the receiving A and B for information.
Yeah, because we modified the main motion. If you're comfortable that people get to speak again, Madam Clerk, then we'll do that. Councillor Abel?
I don't mind hearing the mayor first, but
No, go.
I appreciate the privilege of having spoken twice. I'm looking on page 3 of 13, under concerts in the park. Consultants, $2,000. Through you, Mr. Mayor, is that Phil and Joan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct.
And worth every cent. They brought that concerts in the park from practically nothing to the success it is now. They are great hosts. Are they in the budget for next year? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the cost for a consultant is in the budget for next year,
Joan and Phil?
not Joan and Phil.
Interesting. I couldn't help but notice every week I pass by Wellington, by the Sark, because I work at Westview Golf, as many of you know. And every week they changed the mobile sign there, and it said who's appearing. I think it was minimum 8 weeks. And so I'm looking under special events marketing, and I'm looking at specifically concerts in the park. On page 11 of 13, and I don't see that cost there.
Which cost, Councillor Abel?
There was a mobile sign on the Sark property for about 8 weeks this year, this summer, for July and August, and every week I went by, it updated who was playing in the concerts in the park. So someone from staff was changing that sign. I was just wondering why that sign's not in there.
That's me. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's our staff that put that sign there, and it's our staff to put the letters on and off of that
And the
sign.
cost of the sign?
Actually, it belongs to the town. So we purchased some of those signs so that they actually belong to the town. So we just simply have staff come in and change the letters.
How many signs do we own?
Are we talking the electronic ones or the?
We're talking about mobile sign.
So I'm sorry, I thought it was, Ilmar tells me we own 4 electronics. So the mobile sign, I can check into it, find out what that is. I don't know whether we have an ongoing contract with regards to that or not. I can certainly ask Shelley to provide that information. But we change the letters on it on a regular
It
basis.
just seems that we have mobile signs all through here. I don't want to go through every one, but there's mobile sign costs on a lot of events, and I saw that for 8 weeks, and it's not there, so I'm just wondering if there's a reason why it was omitted. And just to conclude, I know I'm trying the patience of some of the councillors here, but I think it's good that we understand what we're spending our money on, whether it's $10,000 or $200,000 or whatever. It's good that we have an answer for this. I don't want to be part of a council that isn't able to say, well, we spend this money and the benefits. So, for example, Rib Fest, I haven't even got there. Our cultural master plan calls for expansion of events. I'd like to know, I'd like to be able to tell our residents, if Newmark is expanding their events at such a rate and we're not, what's the explanation and how much do we spend, how much do they spend? So I think it's good governance to be able to know what those matters are. And I don't mind asking questions. We've had these questions at the council table for years. And I've always welcomed it. I think it's good. The more that we know about our budget items, the better we can explain to our residents the rationale for why we do these things. And I, for one, am all for special events. I think they make a character of our community. I'm not against these events, and I don't want to curtail them. I just want to have an understanding of what it costs the town.
Councillor Humphreys, I believe you wanted to. Councillor Perry, Councillor Gardner.
I think, Mr. Mayor, just really quickly, and again, I appreciate what Councillor Abel's getting at, just to understand the end-to-end costs of putting on an event, and I think it's good information, and it doesn't hurt to have this. I do have to rely heavily, though, on staff to do the best that they have to do or can do with the budget they've got at the beginning of the year and how they allocate their funds. And, you know, the events have been quite, you know, substantial in town and continue to get better and better. So I just hope that, you know, I want, in particular, special events from my perspective, I want staff to understand that you know, I love what they do and the work that they do. And the events are first class. So to continue the good work. And as counselors, this is something that we need to do to get information and just take a look at how things are spent. The counselors are able to point. We just want to make sure that people ask us, you know, how much did you spend on, you know, Ribfest? And oh, it was 30,000, or but we had all these special bands, and yeah, I know it was great. So I think it's a great for us to have this information. It doesn't hurt, but I do love what staff is doing, and I do believe we need more of a complement there, and we'll talk about that tomorrow, because there's a lot more demands for more events and just a lot more effort around, you know, putting on these great events that are good for our town residents and attract other people to our community, because that's really important. We want us, you know, to become a destination. That's sort of what we're building with the Cultural Precinct and events that go along with it, right? So anyway, I just thought I'd share that.
Councillor Peary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually just wanted to echo Councillor Humphreys' comments. What's tough to quantify is the quality control that happens when we do it in-house. You know, I've seen different events across the province, across this region. You know, they bring in third-rate cover bands. You know, we have a very high quality and a high standard that we adhere to, and I think everyone, all of our residents in town, appreciate the work that our staff do in putting that forward. You know, there's one instance in the past that comes to mind where a third party came in without much of a background or backstory, and it ended up, you know, really not working well for the town of Aurora, and I think it was a big mistake to even work with some of those organizations. But ultimately, the quality and the work that our staff do, I think, is outstanding, and I think it goes much beyond the dollar sense of where a mobile sign came from and how much it costs to change the letters.
Councillor Pearson, Councillor Gartner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I think that everybody would agree with what Councillor Peary has just said, and Councillor Humphreys. I think it's one of the great strengths of Aurora, the special events. But I also do think we need to know how much they cost us. With respect to the haunted forest, there's no revenue figures on page 4.
Mr. Downey?
Through me, Mr. Mayor, I believe that's in red. And so if it has a yellow bar across it, those are costs that we have included, or all the bills have come in. We haven't received all the invoices, and we haven't paid all the bills with regards to the events that are in red, and Haunted Forest is one of those. So we simply haven't had time to
do that. Thank you. And my understanding is that we bring more and more people every year, so we can look at our figures from last year, or that we received previously, and know that they're going to be at least that good. Okay, thanks, Mr. Downey.
Any other speakers? Just a quick comment. I judge the special events by the comments from the people. And I think we're doing a great job on special events. Should we know what they cost? Absolutely. I have no problem with that, but I think that's time much better spent at the Finance Advisory Committee than sitting around the council table. Calling the vote. All in favor? Contrary? It's carried. Corporate. Page 37. 6-37. Mr. Elliott, you want to give us a, oh, I'm sorry, my apologies.
I'd be pleased to represent Director Van Leeuwen, but I think she's prepared better than I am.
You're sitting quiet, just like a mouse over there, right? Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Corporate Services Business Plan can be found on tab 6, page 37. As you recall, I provided a presentation to Council on November 14th, but I will quickly give you an overview. The services that we provide: IT services, human resources, legislative services, legal services, bylaw enforcement and licensing. We have Access Aurora, which is our customer care center, and special projects. I will run through quickly our 2017 objectives. We're going to complete council chambers upgrade in the meeting management suite, revitalize corporate health, safety, and wellness programs, including the development of training matrix. We are going to complete phase 4 of the records management program with the launch of our EDRMS, which is Electronic Document and Records Management System. Continue with Excellence Canada initiative, including the completion of a customer experience plan and development of process mapping standards. We're going to update our emergency management plan, including business continuity and disaster recovery plan. We will refine our parking program, working collaboratively with IES. Develop property standards strategy to address vacant buildings and absent property owners. Explore options for animal control and shelter service with the N6. We are going to update our IT strategic plan, looking at leveraging municipal partnership opportunities to enhance our current IT services. Expand our customer relations management tool and telephony tools, mainly used in Access Aurora, but we are expanding our CRM to other divisions. Expand our civil wedding program, and continue to review, update policies and bylaws. Basically, those objectives are outlined on page 39 and 40. On page 41, we have our KPIs identified, and I can advise council that within the next month, we will be sitting down to review these KPIs to make sure that they are relevant and they are meaningful and they do add value. So we can start to track in January of 2017 with perhaps slightly different KPIs. So this may change next year. And page 42 and 43 are our budget highlights, and keep in mind there is 7 divisions, so these numbers are rolled up. On the bottom of page 43, you will see our net overall operating increase is $492,000, and if I could flip you to page 46, I'll outline the key changes for the 2017 budget that comprise of that $492,000. We have a right-sizing adjustment. This is mainly how my salary was allocated previously and the reorganization. Previously, it was allocated 97% to buildings division, and so this is a right-sizing adjustment. We have included in this budget the conversion of the contract position for a records management program to a full-time permanent position. We have invested significant amount of money in the records management program. This position was identified as a recommendation in the corporate management plan in 2012. We have funded it through the capital project for the last 3 years. The project is coming to completion, but we're looking for this additional full-time permanent individual to oversee records management, as well as oversee freedom of information and also be involved in policy development in legislative services. And then we have increased costs of software maintenance and support, a significant amount of money. There are a number of key software maintenance and support costs. Some of the significant ones are the onboarding of our EDRMS, So that's Laserfiche is an annual cost. We have Maximo, which continues to increase annually. CityView, Esri, which is the backbone of GIS. So these costs we see are going up each and every year. And then we have salary-related increases and our step increases. Also included in this is a reduction of bylaw parking revenues, and this was a result of the suspension of the overnight program. And then telecommunication cost increases as well as other general inflationary pressures. And also included, in the options, is an increase in animal control. If you recall, when I came forward September for the OSPCA contract, we identified that in the year of 2016, bylaw services was augmenting animal control. And as we continue to grow, we're seeing increased activity in bylaw services across the board, property standards issues, ongoing other related issues. So we have gone forward with a one-year contract extension with the OSPCA, but if council so chooses to increase that service, we are requesting $45,000 for additional patrols that OSPCA will undertake. And that concludes my business plan.
Thank you, Ms. Van Leeuwen. Will someone please put the motion on the floor? Councillors Tom and Humphries, thank you. Comments or questions for Ms. Van Leeuwen? Councillor Tom. Councillor Humphries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Tisha. So for the full-time ask, it's for records management, policy development, corporate services. So from 2012 to now, this position has basically been funded on a contract from capital spending, you said?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. So the salary has been funded by the capital project.
Now that's just so, just to understand, because this is also talking about records management and then policy development. So there's a couple different pieces there, but was the contract also developing policy, or is it just really for records management piece?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there was some policy development as part of the project, but this going forward will include additional policy development within legislative services, and they will also oversee the freedom of information processing of requests and ensuring that we're meeting that legislation. As we have seen across municipalities, this is a growing trend. We're seeing an increase in the number of FOIs that we process every year. A significant one, for example, this year was Highland Gate, where it took significant amount of resources to process that request.
And thank you. And so my question, I suppose, would be, and just to remind us, what was the contract cost then? So they asked for a $116,000 position. What was the contractor costing us?
The contract, the salary range for the contract, I believe, is between 84 and 92,000. This figure would include salaries and benefits, and hence the reason why it's higher. So we took the mid-range at job rate of that salary grade and added salaries and benefits as well. This is a full year funding, as opposed to other positions that you may see in the budget that commence April 1st or July 1st. We're looking for full year funding as the position, the contract position, is coming to an end. And the launch is not expected until March or April.
Thanks. I just wanted to know what the differences were, and so I appreciate the answers on that. And this will be a manager level position. It says program manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's a supervisory role. Yes.
So how many staff will they be supervising?
One at this time.
Okay.
One full-time direct report.
Thank you.
Councillor Humphries.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much, Ms. Van Leeuwen, for your presentation, and answered one question. And just in terms of priorities, I mean, I know you've got your, one of them especially is continue to monitor, evaluate the refined parking situation. It's ongoing, and we have a process to take us where we want to go. But it looks like there's a lot of goals to reach throughout the year. In your mind, what are your top priorities? Because you've got a huge, corporate services are a huge department. So in your mind, what are the hugest priorities for you, or the top priorities? And I guess that role, that one new hire is is required to get you there, I guess, right? You want to help me with that?
What's your pet project, is what I
That's
just
right,
heard.
that's what I'm trying to say.
Ms.
Through
Van
you,
Leeuwen.
Mr. Mayor, council chamber upgrade, of course. No.
Good answer.
So yes, council chamber upgrade and meeting management. The corporate health, safety, and wellness program is definitely a priority. Excellence Canada is definitely a priority, and the launch of EDRMS, because we have invested significant dollars here corporately and significant resources over the last 4 years. Those would be my top 4.
Perfect, that's great. And you know what, that kind of aligns to what we've been doing over the last few years. And just in terms of one question, and I think you don't have to answer it today, but I know it's something we talked about, KPIs, and I think there's some, in terms of Access Aurora and all the changes that we've made, and I think there'll be some discussion tomorrow night about amalgamating some of that in other areas of our organization. Do you have KPIs now year over year that we can take a look at that show a definition of how we're doing since we went to that method? We had nothing to start with. There was no baseline when we went there. So in your mind, do you have some baseline KPIs to show us and how we're improving?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, are you talking about Access Aurora KPIs? Well, we have just this year been able to get the tools to develop sort of and be able to capture data and report out. So that is something that has occurred very recently. So over the next month, yes, as our corporate services management team sits down, we will be looking at all the KPIs, and we will be including a KPI with respect to Access Aurora.
Thank you. Other speakers, please, for Ms. Van Leeuwen's budget. Councillor Gartner, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. What is a municipal code, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, a municipal code is a consolidation of all municipal bylaws. City of Toronto has a municipal code, and it's broken out into chapters, and all the bylaws are contained within the municipal code, so it's easy to update, it's easy to search, it's very, very user-friendly.
And how is it done now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, currently we just have a number of bylaws that are on our books. So searching it, you have to individually know what to search, where to go,
Okay.
the year. So we're looking at one document that would consolidate all bylaws.
Makes sense, thank you. On page 41, under organizational excellence, a process mapping standard to capture and document corporate knowledge. So what is being done at this moment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, individual departments have commenced with mapping processes. What we're looking at doing is establishing a standard for across the organization. So we're all mapping consistently, and then having a repository of those process maps.
Thank you. I don't really understand this. Is mapping like documenting?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, correct. The flow of the work flows and who's responsible for what, that type of thing.
Thank you. That's all for now.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. Just speaking to key changes to the 2017 budget, 6-46. And I really don't mean to belabor the point, but one of the points that it makes out here is that, one of the changes for this department's budget is the overnight winter parking restrictions, and it says the net impact, which is 40,000. But, as we just went through in the last one, well, that's just one aspect of that program. Are we going to dive into this one and say, okay, what are all the staffing costs, components associated with it, the advertising costs, so forth? I mean, there are an unending number of programs and services that we can do this same sort of deep dive into it. And that's why I caution how much we want to do this, because it'll, I think there, as Mayor Dawes said, there's a place and time. And so I needed to bring that up again.
Thank you. Any other speakers, please? Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, you had mentioned one of your pet projects, and the last one was EDRS. Could Could you tell me what that is? I'm looking, I can't see it.
Yeah, sorry for using the acronym. It's our electronic document and records management system.
Right,
So that's where we will capture all corporate documents.
yes.
Yeah, so,
Put it digital, make a copy, store it, get rid of the paper.
that's correct.
Allow for more storage space. It's efficiencies, and I appreciate it. My overall comment is thank you very much. And I wanted to relay to you that the Access Aurora, I find, is extremely useful as a resource. They're very responsive, very knowledgeable, and I know our key goal was to do exactly that. They're always busy. They're processing funds and budgets, and they everything that seems to come through there. And when I make phone calls, it's very responsive, and it's really valuable. As well as the bylaw service, I've noticed is very responsive. I would just share quickly, there was a tree being cut down on Yonge Street, and the bylaw was on the phone with me. By the time I drove over, there were 3 conversations, and the end all was, it was one tree on private property they were allowed to. And I was able to respond to 3 people that had called me, 1, 2, 3, just like that, that tree's coming down, it's not right. It was a heritage tree, it was all these sort of things, but working with them in a responsive manner was, I just wanted to pass that on because I hadn't. And all too often you're hearing other issues where we're trying to assist people navigating through bylaws, so it's not easy. And I did want to respond to the first snowfall. I noticed there were bylaw officers. I think you said there were 2, but they're very noticeable that the bylaw vehicles during the day, during the event, were moving through very quickly through our streets to see if there were cars there. I imagine the first time they would maybe give them a warning or whatever. Someone said they picked one off and it was a warning. They were like delighted that it wasn't a ticket, but it wasn't really a snow event either. So it was just sort of a communication gradual. And I think with that kind of scrutiny, we'll be able to maintain the safety of the streets, and probably there'll be some ticketing going there with relocating officers from the night shift onto the day to assist in that. So maybe there will be increased revenue there. And I don't want to get into what cars they drive or how much they fill up the gas, and that kind of delving in there is not what I would do, but I appreciate the KPIs and some of the performance measures you brought in as well. Thank you.
Any other speakers on the item? Councillor Gardner, second time.
Thank you. On page 43, I guess the first question is to Mr. Nadarozny. Sorry. I did say that right. No, I didn't. I have to get it right. Nadarozny. When we do external legal costs, of course, we can really never know what they're going to be. But understandably, our costs were much higher for 2016 so far. But we're going back to we're going lower than we had budgeted, anticipated for 2016. So is there a reserve fund? How does the external legal work, please?
Mr. Nadarozny?
Or through you, Mr. Chair, and I'll lean on Mr. Elliott if I get this incorrect, but we do not have a legal fees reserve fund. It is one of the things I think that we should possibly contemplate in the new year as a strategy for managing our reserves. So right now, those costs just drop to the bottom line, and they're reflected in the year-end result as it goes up or down.
Councillor?
Thank you. So, so where does that show when we're looking at our year end? We've gone quite a bit over on external legal. So where does that show up? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
To you, Mr. Mayor, that shows up at as part of the projected deficit that we have showed in our updates.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Van Leeuwen, on the chart on that page, on page 43, software maintenance and support, it's the budget for 2016 and the actual projected is quite a bit higher, and then we're going quite a bit higher for 2017. Could you speak to
Ms.
that?
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor. As I mentioned earlier, we're seeing increased costs across the board with respect to maintenance, support, and licensing fees. And this is corporate-wide, so for all software. One of the ones in 2017 that's coming on board is Laserfiche, which is the Electronic Document and Record Management System, EDRMS. So, you know, there's significant costs, as well as Maximo, which is used by IES, our asset management program. So there's increased costs there. Esri, which is the backbone of GIS, there are significant increase in costs there as well.
Thank you, thank you. So it's going to be 40,000. The 2017 draft is 40,000 higher than the projected year end for 2016. Is this something that's going to be going up every year, or is this something that we're going? Yes, okay. And the same thing with the software licenses. All, pardon? Well, actually, the projected 2016 in the software license is 187.9, and we're drafting 2017 as 164.4. So we are predicting to go down.
Every new license, that's all right.
Through you, or
Yeah, that's correct. It is showing a decrease in the 2017 budget from the year-end actuals. That may be because there might be some licenses that we will no longer be using in 2017. That could explain it. This covers the suite of licenses across the corporation. So, like I said, it's rolled up, but there's probably, there's probably at least 40 different things that are supported there. So.
well, as Councillor Thompson just said, nothing ever goes down, so that's good. Thanks.
Any other speakers, please? Calling the vote, then all in favor. Contrary, that's carried. Thank you. Mr. Ramuno, can you do that in, is this you? Yes. Can you do that in 20 minutes? All right. The floor is yours, sir.
I got a lot of questions for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Planning and Building Services operating budget starts at page 657, and as with all the other departmental budgets, you did hear my presentation. I'll quickly just go through some of the, as you know, it's broken down into three divisions: development planning, long range, and now the building division. Some of key initiatives for 2017, are finalizing our zoning bylaw, cultural precinct plan, continued attraction of a hotel in town, as well as an update to our official plan. Just moving on to the operating budget lines, if I can refer council to page 665, really the net difference from between 2016 and 2017 is an amount of about $116,000. Our revenues have continued to keep pace. Since 2013, we've seen a very healthy planning activity rate and significant revenues coming from planning application fees, building permit fees, and engineering fees that we collect at our site plan and subdivision stage. So again, and I'm also projecting that those revenues will continue on over into not only 2017 but probably into 2018 as well at a healthy rate. So the net impact between 16 and 17 is relatively minor. The biggest change is really the reduction from our development charges into that draw from development charge revenue into the department of $130,000. We're weaning off of that draw. But at the end of the day, we're at a $116,000 difference between 16 and 17. Be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. Would someone please put the motion on the floor? Councillors Kim and Piri. Comments or questions? Councillor Maracas? Councillor Piri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not really too many questions, more of a comment. I just want to thank Mr. Ramuno and his department for the ongoing work with the cultural precinct, and I'm looking forward to our workshop and the work, and obviously it's going to be continuing past that. Also, I guess a question for you to Mr. Ramuno. Is it possible, once we do the update of the official plan, that maybe we can just get a overall cost of what it costs the town? I don't need it broken down, but maybe just like an overall number, if that's possible.
Mr. Romano?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, as you know, in our capital budget, we had budgeted about a $300,000 budget amount. I don't really foresee spending a lot of money, most of it, because it's not a rewrite. Most of it will be done in-house, but we may need to retain the odd consultant to assist. But I can certainly provide that breakdown, and we will need to report to council to retain any additional consulting services.
And I appreciate that. And then maybe also, if the province does not make the necessary changes with the OMB, maybe we can send them that $300,000 bill so that they can pay, considering the OMB tramples all over our official plan all the time. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
I'll just move on to Councillor Piri and then Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Mr. Ramuno. Marco, with the new position, you're anticipating it starting in May? 5-month capping on that one?
Mr. Romano?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I believe the start date is May for that new position. I forgot to mention, but yes, that's a clerical position to assist the building division, and as you know, it's funded by the building revenues, but I think the start date is April, May.
Thank you. I can fully understand why you'd like this position, and the fact that it's paid for by revenues from the building department. I can see why I support it as well, so thank you.
Councillor Kim.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramuno. The administrative position, so even though it's being paid through the building revenue, at least for 2017, given that the build-out is almost peaked, is it fair to say that in 2019 or 2020, eventually it'll go on the tax levy?
Mr. Romano?
So you, Mr. Mayor, no, this position, because it's part of the building staffing complement, would be always funded by those building revenue
Okay,
revenues.
so there's sufficient building revenues to fund this. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Romano? Councillor Gardner, Councillor Humphreys?
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, on page 59, preparation of a green sustainable development guidelines. Could you just speak briefly to that?
Mr. Romano?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. That was it's a requirement within our current official plan. So it's something that we wanted to undertake. What we did when we did the 2C secondary plan, we had the developers for that area prepare a separate green development standards for the 2C areas. So I think moving forward, we're trying to create standards for townwide that we'll be able to incorporate into our official plan.
Councillor?
Thank you. And could you just speak briefly to the chart on page 64?
Mr. Romano?
Certainly, this is the net operating budget requirement. And difficult to read the numbers, but I think moving 2016 to 2017, I believe that is the net impact. So the 2017 number, it relates to that 100 and, I'm sorry, this is in percentages. So yes, so the 2017 budget increase in percentages would be, my apologies, I may have to have Mr. Elliott assist me. Is this yeah, it is percentages, not dollar amounts, right?
Thank you.
Mr. Elliott?
Through you, Mr. Chair, these are in dollars on the left, and percentages are marked on the top of the 19 and the 20 bars. But the 16 and the 17 are, 16 is negative because it was a net revenue, and 17 is so small that there's no percentage relevant to the 2018 increase. Am I helping you with your question?
Good enough for now, thanks.
Yeah. 2017 is only $17,000.
So I guess from a percentage, it's pretty substantial, 17 to 18.
That's why it's not shown. It's not a relevant number.
Councillor? Okay, thank you. Councillor Humphries, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. Ms. Runa, thank you for your presentation. And question was asked about the headcount. I'm happy that there's no business impact, or sorry, no impact to the tax levy. But just there's one, and I know there's lots of great work being done. You've done a great job in your department with the zoning, rezoning, and excited with the cultural precinct. We're going to hear a lot more about that this week, or sorry, next week. Oh, and one day this week. But just one thing, work towards expanding online mapping services, and it says 3D, can you just expand on that from a building planning perspective and what that means for us?
Mr. Bruno?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. That is really initiative coming from our GIS department. And it's really, they've got some great mapping capabilities that some of it is sort of 3D modeling. I think we may have seen some of it where we can do flyovers. We did some of it when we created our promenade plan. We were able to create sort of building blocks of what the built form would look like with a bunch of buildings, new buildings, along our Yonge Street corridor. So it's that type of mapping that we'll be able to create and also put online.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Ramuno, or perhaps Mr. Nadarozny might want to chime in as well. On 663, it talks about a budget breakdown by town service, and I'm looking at the economic development line, which when I look at 2017 through to 2020, it continues to show that we've still sitting around $200,000 invested into economic development, which is primarily 1.3 FTEs. So I guess my question is that I thought from a strategic perspective that the town was looking to dedicate more resources long-term to the development of economic development. And I guess, is this because we haven't officially formed the Office of Economic Development and other resources haven't been moved into here? Because for me, I thought we would be investing more than $200,000 a year for the next 5 years.
Sir.
To you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. This budget document, of course, was prepared before the economic development proposal came forward. And council will also remember that there is an option to add the staffing and to fund that from changing your capital allocations. So all of that would be reflected if those decisions are made by council.
Councillor?
So it'd be fair to say next year when we look at this same document, there'll be a change in that economic development line?
Sir?
To you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
If the world was to unfold as it should, Any other speakers, please? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. It's 7 minutes to. Councillor Perry.
Mr. Mayor, before we consider adjournment,
Recess.
based on the glacial speed that we've moved tonight, is there a possibility that we can start tomorrow at 6?
I don't, no, because we're already advertised for starting at 7.
We were only ever advertised if needed. We could have technically gone through this. I'd be open to waiving procedural bylaw if somebody shows up at 7 who would like to discuss it. It would just be my precedent.
Okay with me.
Through you, it is on the meeting schedule, posted online, starting at 7, and because it is a budget meeting, I wouldn't recommend it at this point. But what I would recommend is maybe next year we amend the schedule to have the budget meeting start at 6.
I'm sorry. Councillor Tom.
Thanks. I spoke with Doug and Al about this at the end of last week, or I don't even know. It's all flowing together at this moment in time, but it was sometime after a budget meeting. The cultural center, I didn't get a chance to talk about this during capital. I just want to make a small motion. If it's going to be a long debate, I don't want that. What I would like to do is make a motion to add for capital budget of 2018, so in the 10-year capital plan, a sign for the Church Street School. The Cultural Center was looking to get a grant. They didn't get it, and I think we have a facility that houses the museum and houses the Cultural Center. It doesn't have a sign on the street. All I want to do is just add it to the 10-year capital plan for 2018, so it won't be a part of this budget, just so it gets it for discussion next year at budget, and so we get the staff looking into costing and everything else. And so I was told that it would be.
Well, we've already passed the capital budget, so.
For 2018, I'm adding it to 2018.
I'm sorry, you're right.
Not for 2017. Just adding it to the 10-year capital plan. It has to be done at budget.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, well, that's the advice I got last week.
Okay, hold on, whoa. Mr. Elliott.
In conversation with my colleague, staff will take it under advisement. We'll bring it forward as part of the 2018 capital budget next year and allow fulsome debate at the table.
So it doesn't require a motion then? No. Oh, fabulous. Then that suffices. So,
okay, so I'm thinking a motion to recess, and we will convene here tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Councillor Perry, Councillor Tom, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So I go from